Hello and welcome to this week's post-game episode of Cowboys Takeover. It's a little somber today, not as not my jovial self, not feeling it, not happy, disappointed, disgruntled, maybe a little disillusioned, some alliteration there, trying to get it in there. Man, that even I was off. And I thought bad things and I wasn't close. But we'll get into that. Aaron, on this beautiful holiday, apparently Columbus Day still a holiday. We get off. I'm off. At least I was off work. I know I am. It's a beautiful thing. I love it. How's your Monday going, sir?
So far, so good. Kind of had the morning cup of Joe, and just kind of trying to plan out my day here. And I'm avoiding sports radio, sports television,
Shit.
as best I can so far, and I'm going to try to avoid it through the whole week.
Yeah, that's right. You're a little bit earlier out there. It's only what 10 o'clock out there.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, it's tough. It was tough sitting there yesterday watching that game. I didn't expect that bad. I didn't think we had a shot. I really thought Detroit was a better team than us. Their team, when you look at offensively, they have a lot of weapons. They have a lot of ways to beat you. And when you look at their run game, something Dallas has struggled with, they do have two guys where, when they're looking good, they can both get going. They're both averaging over 4.5 yards a carry this season going into the game. And it really showed, yesterday, I was a little excited. You mentioned going in, after last week or, after the last 2 weeks before, going into Detroit, Dallas's run defense has looked really well. The Giants, I was a little, okay, it's the Giants. But when you get a team like Pittsburgh where Dallas, I really didn't think they could win. I thought the only way, and I said it on the show, the only way I really think they can win is if they shut the run game down and make Fields beat you, which they did. Detroit was a different animal. I thought even you shut the run game down, Goff was still there. But, man, this defense does not really look like a defense that we expected. I know now, we know looking at it, you're missing Tank. You're missing Micah. You're missing Bland. But its defense does not, even with those guys there, it didn't look like a defense that was, an upper echelon defense. Is this something you're concerned about? Are you really shocked? Do you think losing, oh my gosh, what's his name? Aaron?
Kendricks?
Nope. The defensive coordinator from last year.
Oh, Quinn.
Yeah. Do you think losing Quinn was really that big and bringing in Zimmer, the change of scheme, like something's different because this is not the same team. Defensively that you saw that could even early in the season outside of that Cleveland game, the big boys weren't getting after the quarterback the way we're used to either. How concerned are you right now?
So I'm definitely concerned. I'm not hitting the panic button quite yet. I need the starters back. We were really, really thin, especially on DB yesterday, and that first third and long that Jared Goff hit, like on that 45-yarder, that he probably doesn't throw up that 50-50 ball on a Bland or even maybe a Jordan Lewis. But anyways, I am concerned. But what I'm looking at here and what I'm getting the sense of is that we have what I'm calling a McCarthy fatigue syndrome, whereas whether it be the players are not bought in or it's just this week over week inconsistency that you have. We're coming off 3 seasons of 12 plus wins, and at this point the players are like, you know what, we're just kind of tired of this same week over week preaching, and we're not getting anywhere.
Yeah, to me, but I do think, and listen, I've been a proponent. I've been advocating on this show. Sure, it doesn't hit the ears of Jerry Jones, but I've definitely been advocating to get rid of McCarthy for a few years now. And that's something we're definitely going to get into, especially with Jerry's comments over the weekend or after the loss. Not considering even getting rid of McCarthy yet. Some we'll touch on later. I definitely want to get into that though because I don't like it. I think it's man, this was an embarrassing loss, especially after coming off of you kind of get your hopes up. But I'm very concerned because Diggs. There's that one touchdown against Williams where Diggs got beat. And kind of
Yeah.
pressed coverage. It looked like, oh, excuse me. I don't know if they're supposed to be somebody over the top, but he had that look like somebody's supposed to be there. But when you're saying you're traveling with the best guys and you're getting beat, this defense. When you're watching yesterday, they look like a defense that just didn't care. They're getting thrown around a lot.
Yeah, didn't wanna tackle.
Didn't want to tackle line, and it's not just they're Montgomery's running through you. He's a good back, but you made this dude look like Derek, like the way he's kind of rolling around, spin moving, hitting dudes.
Yeah.
Um, and that's where listen, I hit the panic button a while ago with Dak because I don't believe in him. This was another week where you just watch and you're like, okay, this is, if you're going to make a case, I think that was a great game to make a case against Dak. But I also think the defense has given up. It really, and I thought Micah kind of had given up prior. He didn't look, he looked
Mm,
disengaged a lot of it when they're losing some of those games. A lot of the defense did. Um, but the in fighting. So my panic, but I'm at a 10 right now. Panic. I don't think this is a team that could turn it around. You're 3-3 going into your bye week, and it doesn't get easy. Coming out of the bye, you get San Fran. We talked about before. I forget off the top of my head, but they're coming out with a tough schedule. You go into this bye week. I felt early in the season. I do think you need change. A week was this week 7 now. We're going into Dallas is 3-3. We'll get into it later, but I think this is the week change need to happen. And it's very disappointing. Like you said, hopefully maybe you may be able to get Micah back after the bye. I know that's what they're talking about. Micah could come back that and Tank's going to be a little bit longer, but I'm still discouraged. Even with them back, I still remember, outside of Cleveland, we weren't really rushing the passer much. We couldn't get the pressure, and a lot of it could be. I do think a lot of it has to do offensively as well. Um, but they just don't look like the same defense. They're not aggressive. They kind of look like they've given up.
mhm,
And that's just my opinion. But I think it's a 10 in the panic button at this spot right now. Um, they just look like a defense that doesn't care. They're not hearing it. Outside of the couple times where the linebackers flying around, like they get pushed around too much. It's a soft defense.
mhm. Yeah, I agree. It is a soft defense, and it pains me to say that. And if I was at a 3 panic, a couple weeks ago, I'm probably closer to a 6.5,
What, dude? How can you like?
7 right now.
That's
Yeah,
it.
6.5. Yeah. And if we get blown out by the Niners, it'll probably go up to a 9.
Well, I listen. I'm. It's
And the season is probably over. Um, I mean, at what point can we call the
well.
season?
Here's my question: what do you consider over? Because right now, I consider the season over. They may squeak into the playoffs, but I don't think they make any real noise. I think it's over. I've already, I would put the J. Ken stamp of disapproval. This team can't make a Super Bowl this year. I don't care what you do.
Well, other teams still got to remain healthy, including the top teams and with their quarterbacks and whatnot. I think if you have faith that we're going to make the playoffs, then I would say let's see how our run in December is going in, and if we can get hot. Also, I would say let's get through past the trading deadline and see if we've made any moves. So those are kind of would be two question marks that remain. But if we, depending on how we look against the Niners, and I know at least maybe definitely last season you called that a trap game for the Niners, and I think you were headed on that same track again for this season. Um, depending on how that game turns out, I'm really concerned that if we lose that game, we're probably missing the playoffs. I think there's too many good teams now in the NFC. You look at the NFC North, and then we have Eagles and Commanders to worry about.
I think they can still make it. When you look at it after, I don't think the Eagles are as good, and it's not just me being a hate. When you look at the Eagles, they're not a good team. They're
Yeah.
in the same boat Dallas is. So you look, there's definitely winnable games. You have the Falcons, you have the Eagles, you have the Commanders, you still have the Giants again, you have the Panthers. What are the Commanders? You don't know. So those are winnable. You have a lot of winnable games left. I don't think, I think even losing the game, they can still make it because I do. It's tough to even say, but I think some of those teams, they're going to squeak out some wins. They're going to get some wins there. But I just don't believe in the team as a whole because, the defense is
Mhm.
just, they got embarrassed yesterday. They didn't step up. They didn't do really anything. Goff looked again, had another great performance, 18 to 25 for 315, 3 touchdowns. Montgomery and Gibbs again split the carries right down the middle. Both have 12 each. Montgomery had 80 yards at 6.7 a carry, and Gibbs had 12 for 63, 5.3 carry. And they just, every time you saw them touch the ball, they were throwing guys around and really dismantling them. It was
Yeah,
tough, man.
it was very tough. Mozzie Smith was on his back, I feel like, half of the game, getting pushed around. And McCarthy said it at the post-game conference that they were like a step and a half ahead of us on every play.
Yeah.
So just an embarrassing win on Jerry Jones's birthday. Not that that should have given any additional motivation, but the memes are flying around, and an anemic offense, and it's I get those that want to be disappointed in Dak, but
Dude, if you defend
he
him,
doesn't play defense. It's the
okay,
same thing
and
as
good. I'm
it's the
glad.
same thing.
I'm glad you went there because that's we're going here, and I'm glad you brought that up because here's what we want to throw out here. The first drive, Dallas says, "Hey, we don't do well. Let's take the ball." My man drives the ball, gets inside. We get into the red zone. Hey, and this is after he just threw an interception on some kind of maybe a weak call. Throws an interception, gets a second chance.
Mhm.
Can't do anything. We get stuck at the 16, kick a field goal. Detroit comes out and looks like world beaters and just bing, bang, boom down the field. And you're like, okay, we've kind of seen this from Dak. We've seen this all year. Dak's going down, not scoring. Maybe after last week, we figured something out. Drive number 2, we get inside the 10. And Aaron, what does our all-star quarterback, our record-setting quarterback do on this drive? In the end zone, where you're watching the DB play in the middle, where you basically have no chance to fit that ball in the CeeDee Lamb. You take the dump off, you kick the field goal, or you eat it and look somewhere else or throw it out. He
Mhm.
tries to make another great play where he's not that guy and throws an interception in the red zone. And now your first 2 drives, you came up with 3 points. You're in the red zone twice. Then after that, the next 4 drives, after having a drive of 9 plays and 9 plays, do you know what your next 4 drives to end the half are? 3, 3, 4, 4. A lot of that's on Dak. Like, I get it, but like, you make the mistakes there. He makes so many mistakes. I'm so tired of hearing, and it bothered me last year, and I bought into it, and I really thought this was going to be the year. But Dak is not an elite quarterback. He's a very average quarterback who, when things are going, when he has that great running game, and you can't just make Dak beat you, he can't do anything. He's not your Aaron Rodgers. He's not he's not Ben Roethlisberger. He's not in that caliber of guy. He's a guy that's a very good quarterback that if you give him a great running game can make plays. We in Dallas, a lot of people, and I've not liked him for years because I've recognized what he was, because I can be honest with myself. A lot of Dallas fans and a lot of national media, once he got Amari Cooper and had the great run game and started to throw, and
Mhm.
now that you don't have 1,000-yard rusher behind you, which isn't that hard to do anymore, Dallas just can't do it. Dax is very average, and I don't know if he tries too hard, but a lot of those plays yesterday were very bad. and I don't know if he's over trying, but he's just showing he can't carry a team. He's not a quarterback that should be making that kind of money, and that's the issue with the NFL is you have these now average quarterbacks because of the quarterback position, and you've made quarterback such an easy position to I don't want to say easy because not anybody can go do it, but you understand what I'm saying, where you had to be 15, 20 years ago, the level of quarterback, you had to be a much better quarterback. Now Dak can throw for 5,000 yards and get paid and hurts the rest of your team because now we don't have money to throw elsewhere when Dak doesn't really deserve that contract. To me, if you're getting paid to and he's as great as the media, you were second in MVP votes last year.
Mhm.
So I know you're a good quarterback, but I don't want to hear it's not on Dak when your last four drives go 3 or 4 plays and out. And then the drive before that, you're throwing an interception in the red zone, and you had 2 other interceptions throughout that game. And the week before, you almost cost them with your bonehead plays. Like you're costing us. Your play is what's costing us. Which at this point, when you're missing your star defensive players, your play needs to elevate. And I think it's a lot of the construction of the team. It's tough when you have 0 run game, but that falls on Dallas at this point. They haven't given Dak enough help. They waited too long to pay everybody, and Dak's just not the quarterback everyone claims he is, and it bothers me. And I'm sorry I had to go on a Dak rant, but that game yesterday bothered me. That play bothered me, and then he didn't do dog crap after.
You know what? That's a very predictable play call. How many times have we thrown it to the corner of the end zone with a Cooks or a Lamb
Yeah,
running or a Turpin? That's on film everywhere. To me, that's a predictable play. I knew what the play call was, and so did the Lions defense. So the DB acted like he was going to follow the flat. He stayed back. Dak basically airballed it, and it sailed in the air for 30 seconds. It felt like,
forever.
and it was a really easy interception. He didn't really put any mustard on it. Brady mentioned that I think on the broadcast. So, and you covered I think both sides of the line there as to some reasons why Dak. There's a lot of pressure on him. CD is not the is not the Randy Moss or Jerry Rice or I don't think he's a top 5 wide receiver in the league where he can carry the full
No,
offense by himself. And Cooks is more closer to a wide receiver 3 than he is a wide receiver 2. And I agree with what McCarthy said at the post game that our running game is more of a run blocking problem than a RB problem. The guys just are not creating holes up front. And I would go as far as to say, when you think about our drafting and as on the O line and as productive as these guys have been, in that draft room or even before you get to the draft room, these guys are all they're probably looking more so at their pass blocking for their pass protection more so than their run blocking, right? When you grade these guys
yeah.
on their game, I think they've probably shown if we got a subpoena and got all of their notes and breakdowns and all this, they're probably disregarding their run blocking more so than their pass blocking skills, because that's kind of what it screams now. They're pretty productive, and then again, we got a rookie at left tackle, which is a big deal, and
See,
he's been performing, I would say, above average for a
but
rookie left
Aaron,
tackle.
the kid's got 59. Our leading rusher has 59 attempts. I'm going to disagree because there's games, when you're watching, like last week, he's got 59 attempts on the season, our leading rusher, and 20 of them came 2 weeks ago. 59th is good for you're tied for 25th in rushing attempts, and you're averaging 4.2 yards a carry. So I
Okay.
don't think it's as much as a run blocking issue as much as it is as a play calling issue, because there's a lot of games that you're sitting here watching and that Dallas is they're in the game and it's a close game and they're getting away from the run. and it happens way too much. And I think it is a play calling issue. It's a Mike McCarthy issue to me. I know he doesn't want to say it, but 2 weeks ago against the Giants or against Pittsburgh, that was his only. I think Rico had 20 carries that game. That's the only one they really got him going. I because he's averaged most of his games, if I remember correctly, he's averaging over 4 yards or right around 4 yards a carry. They're just not giving it to him. Teams know Dallas is passing. They have almost over 100 more passing attempts than they do rushing attempts. So I don't buy you can't get good at run blocking when you're not run blocking. They have 133 rushing attempts, 238 passing attempts. So it's more of a play calling issue to me. They got to let somebody take the reins. If it's not Zeke, and you're really saying you brought him in here, one, it bothers me that you're saying you brought him in here for later in the season because you're not winning now. But two, then just let Rico go do his thing. Give Rico attempts. Teams know Dak's throwing. Teams know Dak's struggling. Teams know Dak's can't go beat him by himself. So you got to commit to the run at this point. You got to change something up because what you're doing through the first 6 weeks really isn't working. You beat a Pittsburgh team, which isn't as good as everyone thought they were going to be. Nobody really believed in them. And you beat the Giants and a really, really bad, it seems like, Cleveland Browns team. The other wins, the losses are embarrassing, and you got manhandled. Yeah. So, but when I really look at it, and I do go into it now, to me, going into this bye week, Aaron, how do you not even consider some sort of change? Because now you're just telling me it's another wasted season with Mike McCarthy at the helm, is what Jerry's telling us.
Mm-hmm. It's tough.
Yeah.
I think McCarthy, like I said, I think there's fatigue, whether it be in the locker room, in the playbook, just the culture, or all of the above. We're basically there, and it's run its course. And I think we've hit our peak in the McCarthy era. And I hate to say, because he's like a good guy. You wish him well. And in the press conferences, he just sounds so beat up and overly stressed. And I think that it would benefit both parties, if we parted ways. I would like to think it's going to happen at the end of the season. And then, maybe into December, we can start talking about, who the replacement should be. A lot of good candidates out there, and a lot of creative offenses out there. And I think we should be looking at an offensive minded coach more so than a defensive coordinator, for example. You got Robert Saleh out there now in the marketplace. But I wouldn't be surprised if we kept Zimmer as a DC.
Okay. No, I want to bring in a defensive minded coach and just clear house at this point. I'd like okay. A guy, Saleh. I'd rather go, if you're going to bring in, you can bring in like a rookie high or, younger dude as offensive coordinator, but I'd like a guy like Saleh, maybe, because it wasn't the Jets defense that was the issue, but I'd much rather get rid of McCarthy. Like, to me right now is the perfect time. You're not going to bring anybody in, but it's just disappointing. I don't know if Jerry's delusional at this point, and I've defended Jerry for a while now with, the drafting and how all of that's gone. But when you really look at it, your goal, and it bothers me because I defend it. I defend when people say Dallas is irrelevant and have been for years. I defend the business side of it and him making a lot of money. But at some point, you have to worry about winning football games too. And you can't, I don't know if it's your dollar, you don't want to get rid of him in case you have to pay him. I don't know what the case may be. But if you think, if you're not even really considering, and we know Jerry's a guy that's not shy about saying what he believes, what he really feels. And he's never been shy about going out and saying that kind of stuff. McCarthy's really, I agree with you. I think the voice is not there. They're an undisciplined team. They don't react. They don't step up for the big moments. And he's not the guy. He's not the guy that can lead them. So I really think it has to be done now. I don't think it will be, but it's a strange feel like, after 6 weeks, I do think it's tough when you believe you don't have a shot. And that's what I believe at this point, that Dallas doesn't have a shot. When you look at the team, there's nothing I can really tip my hat on and say, this looks good. We can recover. The best
Yeah.
thing what looked the best was their fake end around punt return or their kick return. That's the best thing they had going for them. And it bothers me because when I've done it in Madden, the guy doesn't even run behind me. He runs in front of me. So I'm sitting there, at least Dallas runs that right. That's about it. It gives Turpin a little bit more of a lane.
Yeah.
Outside of that, there's nothing you can really tip your hat on saying that's what we are. And they mentioned it. Brady, I think Brady even said it, or one of them said it yesterday. Dallas doesn't have an offensive identity. They don't have a team identity. When you look at Detroit, their head coach is that identity. They're not when you look at, them as individual teams and individual players, none of them you really say, he's the best at what he does. Outside maybe Laporta, Hutchinson, they're really good.
Mhm.
But Goff, okay. The running backs, Montgomery never really did anywhere. Gibbs wasn't thought to maybe be that big of a dude. St. Brown, but there it works. And their head coach believes in them and they buy into what, so you got to look at Detroit and think, man, they built it the right way. They got in there to change the culture. And I think that's what you have to do at Dallas at this point. You got to get McCarthy. You got to get these puppet head figures or whatever it is. I'm tired, they got to get somebody new in there. It's old.
Yeah.
It's got to change. Something's got to change for this team to take that next step. You're
And
wasting a lot of good guys' primes.
now, right. Now, Detroit did it the right way, but it took some time. They're in what, Campbell's fourth season. Um, so, but where we are, we're in a downward trajectory, right? We've hit our peak in the McCarthy era, and that's concerning. That's
Yeah.
frustrating. Um, there's no real signs of a miraculous turnaround. I think I could I could see, Dak being a leader on the offensive side, but I think his leadership doesn't carry to the defensive side, and I think our defense doesn't really have a true leader. I don't think Micah is the guy to do it. I think he's still too young. And then D Law seems to have like tried to hand over the reins to Micah, and it just hasn't worked. They have so that leadership side of things from coaching and how it translates to the players, we just don't have. I don't see it,
Yeah.
and I don't see these guys, playing hard. I think Zimmer has a really tough task, um, and having everyone kind of buy in and step up. So between not having a run game, Dak not playing well, our defense not being able to stop anybody, and all of this coming in fruition at home. Oh gosh, I don't know what's worse.
That you're 0-4 in your last 4 home games.
Yeah.
After being historic all last season. I think that's what's most frustrating. It's tough. You're giving up 4, you're giving up 4 touchdowns a game, only scoring 3. Um, it's not a good look. I think the bye week probably couldn't come at a better time right now. They're really struggling. They need to figure out who they are, and I do think you kind of hate the early season bye, but right now I think for Dallas, if you're, I think you give everybody the whole week. I don't know how teams work. I think you give them the whole week off. As bad as they're playing, don't make them come in. Let them go home, rest, think about it. Go home, relax, get away from football, clear your head. We got to change stuff though. We got to fix some things. So I think it's a perfect week to get their mind right and um, come back against San Fran prepared is what I'm hoping.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. We'll see kind of how they respond, and 49ers have a tall order in facing the Chiefs this coming weekend, so I think that only bodes in our favor. And we'll see how many players we get back coming after the bye week as well. And but this one is you know I hate to say it, you called it, and you could see this kind of turnout kind of coming
Yeah.
uh, down the road. But like I said, I don't know what hurts most between all our inefficiencies or just the fact that we are terrible at home.
Yeah, I think it's more the inefficiencies. If I'm going to say anything, I think it's because it's a terribly coached team. They don't have them prepared, and that's the toughest part. You see week in, week out penalties, non-disciplined play, just the bad decision making. It's tough. That it's tough. It's a tough way to wrap up week 6. We do have a bye week next week, so we won't have the 2 shows. Aaron and I will discuss and see what we're doing this week. If we're going to do anything this weekend, kind of break anything down. We thank each and every one of you checking us out this week. It's not what we expected. Well, okay, it's what I expected. I don't think we expected that bad. I didn't expect Dallas to really get womboshed, if that's a word I can use, because that's probably the best way to describe it. It's very defeating. And yeah, you kind of hope San Fran beats Kansas City and they're overjoyed coming in overlooking Dallas. That's what you kind of hope for. But it's just another rough week. But we got to keep the hope. I don't believe in it, but I do think if you change McCarthy, I think you can get a different tune, get these guys playing. But you really hope they come out, they figure something out in this bye week. That's the only real encouragement I have this week. Is really they're going into that bye week, kind of figure things out. Maybe get an identity, or Dak can be in there talking to those guys, getting them revved up. Whoever on the defensive side, somebody could step up there. But something has to change. Change during this bye week. They got to come out, play harder, play faster, really start to make statements, and really clear up that. I believe it's the 29th ranked red zone offense right now. Scoring at a clip of, I think, 30 something percent. It's like 35% in the red zone. So they need to take these next 2 weeks and really create an identity for themselves. So if this is getting back to you, to Jerry and the boys, guys, we got to create an identity. We need to know what we are. It's time to figure it out. You guys have had too long. We need everybody to step up. Dak's not making bad plays, but we got to come out winning. We got to be prepared. Thank everyone for watching and checking us out. If you're checking us out on YouTube, on the Ring the Bell Network podcast, or episode, Ring the Bell Network, or the Cowboys Takeover podcast, or Facebook, Cowboys Takeover podcast, Facebook, wherever you guys are listening to us, we really appreciate it. Really thank you all for checking us out for another week. It's tough to say this week, but we're really excited. Let's get this by. Let's rest up. Come out in 2 weeks. Strong. Go Cowboys, baby. Let's go. Enjoy 3-3 after 6. Not what we expected, though. 3-3.